and welcome to the 203rd episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser, and we've got a lot to talk about tonight, folks. It's been a very eventful offseason for the Seahawks, and I think we're going to go through a little bit tonight how we're feeling about what we want to see happen from here on out, and some of the news that's coming out about players of really high caliber getting moved around and what that might mean for people on the Seahawks. So let's go ahead and bring in the crew. We have Dayna O'Gorman at Dayna OG on Twitter. Dayna, it's so good to see you. How are you?
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a while. I don't think I've been on, I don't really think since free agency anyway. So yeah, it's been crazy. This one has been crazy.
There's been some news. We'll catch you up,
one or two things, maybe.
Couple things. Evan Hill at Evan Hill HB on Twitter. Evan, what's up, dude?
It is so good to see you guys. So I am on hotel Wi-Fi right now. So nice. I may be taking Jeff's role tonight and just throwing out some sketchy internet waves. So we'll see.
I love it. Well, that's fitting. Jeff couldn't be with us tonight. Jeff's a little under the weather. So if anyone wants to throw him some kind words at Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter, I'm sure he would appreciate it. He's not feeling great. So nothing too serious, but couldn't be with us. So last time we talked, I think that Deshaun Watson hadn't been moved. There was still talk of Baker Mayfield and Matt Ryan as options in Seattle. Matt Ryan hadn't been traded. Marcus Mariota hadn't been signed. So I think we always really have to start on the quarterback side of things, because I think that we need to have a point of view about where things are. And honestly, that's one of the biggest questions that impacts the next question of, relative to what you want to see for the season. So, Evan, I'm going to start with you on this. Is there something that's happened so far that's disappointed you from a quarterback perspective for getting the Russell Wilson move? And in terms of other players that you're maybe hoping Seattle might go after that they can't now, or are things going exactly the way you hoped?
Post the Russell Wilson news?
Post the Russell Wilson.
Okay. Things are going, I want to say this hesitantly because I have this great fear in my soul that they're going to make a trade for Baker Mayfield soon. Baker is still a Brown. The Browns have yet to move him, and it sounds like the Panthers, I think I saw a report either yesterday or today, are no longer interested in him. The Saints, brought back Jameis Winston, so his options for potential suitors are going down. But my real hope is that Seattle goes cheap at quarterback. I really believe that. If it's Drew Lock or a rookie next year, we just shipped Russell because in part, I think due to his upcoming contract demands, and I think just general philosophies around how to build a football team in the salary cap era. So frankly, I think Seattle should take advantage of this opportunity and go cheap at quarterback, whether that's rolling out Drew Lock or, like I said, drafting somebody this year or next. Stay cheap. My number one hope is that they do not get an expensive stopgap. I was worried they were going to trade for Matt Ryan and shell out some big deal to him. I'm really not in favor of trading for Baker unless it's like a 1 year, like he's willing to reduce his salary, but I don't think he'd be even willing to do that. I don't know. That's just my stream of consciousness thoughts. I would like Seattle to go cheap at quarterback. It's one of the greatest advantages in professional football to have a competent cheap quarterback. We have yet to find, I think, the competent part, but I think we should go cheap for now.
Okay. So you'd be fine with Drew Lock and Geno.
Drew Lock's our franchise quarterback, folks. Drew Lock is our franchise quarterback. Buckle up, fasten your seatbelts. You're going to see some Drew Lock memes because fast forward 5 years from now, we're going to be signing him to a $300 million extension.
Can't wait for that. Can't wait. Dayna, you were hoping Matt Ryan might be in Seattle, right? So you have a different point of view on how the team should approach it and what you're looking for. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the quarterback position so far and kind of what you think now that Matt Ryan's not available, what you'd like to see happen.
I honestly, I would have loved to have Matt Ryan in Seattle. I think that he's the perfect 1 to 2 year quarterback that can fill in the space. I know, Evan doesn't want a stopgap, but I was just like, no, he's kind of that perfect fit. He's a savvy veteran who could have, kind of, knowing he's at the end of his career, taken maybe a rookie under his wing, a little bit like Alex Smith did with Pat Mahomes, and kind of groom him a little bit. So that's where I was thinking with that. And I was real sad, to be honest with you, when he went to Indy. But at the same time, I didn't want to pay him. I am with Evan in the cheap part of this. And then after the last couple of days, which we talked on the Our Turf Football podcast about the insanity that has become new contracts, I want to stay as far away from that as humanly possible, except for DK Metcalf. Like I think that seeing what people are paying and these teams are paying for some of these players. I mean, Tyreek Hill today, are you freaking kidding me? But so I kind of want to stay away from that too. That doesn't mean that I'm ready to roll with Drew Lock. I don't know. I will tell you, I was impressed by his press conference the other day. He admitted he has no idea if he's going to be the starter. He has to compete. They've made that very clear to him, instead of some BS, oh no, they said this was my job kind of crap. No, he knows he's got to fight for it. And I thought he was real poised. So that was impressive to me, but that means nothing when you get to the field, right?
So do you realize, sorry to interrupt, Dana, do you realize Jason Myers makes about 4 times the salary of our current starting quarterback?
Hell yeah, baby. Hell yeah, he does.
Cut him.
LJ Collier is like 2.5 times the salary of our starting quarterback.
Do you guys want to know a fun contract fact? An additional
I would love that.
fact about the Seahawks? This comes from a loyal listener of the show, by the way. His name is Beth Jelgum. He has been a loyal follower of the show. He reminded me of this fact today. The most expensive player from a cap hit perspective today, or as of right now, is none other than Poona Ford.
I'm okay with that. Are you guys okay with that? I'm totally okay with that.
I love it. We have our highest cap hit goes to a big poo, and personally, I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, it is. Generally, when you have high cap hit guys, they're on their second contracts and they've been proven to be really good. And you're either on the downside of their good parts, or, you're just in the middle of it. So, generally it's kind of nice to have guys that are not yet making a ton of money on the team. A little bit hungrier, a little chance to prove themselves. But as far as the quarterback situation goes, I'll just chime in myself. I really was looking forward to something like Matt Ryan. Just as a fan perspective, I would like to see a quarterback of his style throw to DK Metcalf. I don't think Russell was necessarily the perfect fit for DK and what he does. And I just kind of wanted somebody who would be comfortable throwing slants and, whatever. So that's mainly why I wanted to see that. It would also be interesting just to see quarterback who maybe is a little bit better before the snap and, avoiding sacks and things like that. So I honestly I don't think I can really cheer for Drew Lock. Like I like in my mind, just being totally honest, players that I already know are really bad, and there's not potential for this to be some reveal of something you don't know. That is the most boring thing in the world to me as a Seahawks fan. I would rather them sign some guy off the street that we've never seen play than see Drew Lock, who I already know the answer to the question. So, Drew Lock's numbers are really, really bad. And I don't know how much you guys are watching. He's just not good. So I just have zero, not buying anything about Drew Lock. I would rather Jacob Eason. Jacob Eason.
You don't want to root for this man right here?
Well, I'll root for him as a human, but not as a Seahawks fan.
Brian, accept reality. This man on your screen who's picking his nose is our franchise quarterback.
I feel like he is at the caliber of the Kelly Stoffers and Stan Gelbaz. And
Wow.
I would watch the Seahawks those years and I would just watch the defense. As soon as the offense got on the field, I would like turn the channel because it was just, and back then you had to get up to turn the channel. Like this is a long time ago. Yeah. So anyway, that's my ramble about the quarterback position. As of now, with what's left, I'm not interested in Baker Mayfield. I would love them to get Gardner Minshew.
Mhm.
I don't think they're going to do it. I think the Huntley kid in Baltimore is interesting. I know Matt Hasselbeck loves him. Thinks he could be great on another team. My biggest of everything, guys, I do not want the first pick spent on a quarterback.
Mm.
If they spend their first round pick, the 9th overall, forget trading back. If they spend that pick on a quarterback, I will be as mad, if not more, than I was last year when they didn't pick Creed Humphrey. Like that's how bad of a move that would be. So that's my biggest thing. I want that to be a left tackle. I want that to be a cornerback. I want that to be an edge rusher. One of those 3 positions, preferably left tackle. All right.
So are you fully bought into like the hive mind strategy that we've come to agreement on, except for Dayna, of drafting a quarterback in 23?
Who said I wanted to draft a quarterback this year? I never said I wanted to draft.
No. In 20. I thought didn't you want Malik Willis or no?
No, I said I didn't want him. He's only 6 feet tall, for Christ's sake. That's why I was like, I'm tired of short quarterbacks. I want something else. I just said that he was impressive at his pro day, but aren't they all? That's how they're set up to be. And he did have a nice long ball, but I thought it was funny that when he did, they played that clip over and over and over again of him scrambling, and the Seahawks quarterback coach is standing behind him. I'm like, that was for the Seahawks. That was for who that was for. That was honestly, for nobody else. Honestly, no, I don't have any interest in this year's quarterbacks at all.
I mean, I'm fine with them taking a quarterback, but I don't want it to be in the first round. In fact, I would be disappointed if they don't take a quarterback. Take someone in the 4th round or something. You know, like that's fine. You never know if you hit something big, but anyway, yeah, that.
I do want to agree with you, though. I think left tackle, if the position falls correctly, I've heard what's his face, Charles Cross from Mississippi State is a potential name for Seattle. I think left tackle, it's such a critical position, but I feel like we don't talk about it enough. Like if we're going to draft a quarterback, build around a quarterback, we have to have that foundation, and nothing's better than some elite left tackle, some mammoth of a human being.
A huge gap right now. That's another thing that's changed. Trent Brown was basically like using the Seahawks to get a better deal with the Patriots. Brandon Shell signed with the Broncos, I think, or at least isn't coming back. We never really expected him to come back. Dwayne Brown supposedly has interest from some other teams. Seattle hasn't done what they need to sign him yet. The hell's going on at tackle?
Yeah. It's sketchy.
I mean, we have our opinions, but Dayna, like, what do you think John and Pete are doing? Are they like intentionally, are they tanking? Like, because can't imagine. Do they really think that Stone Forsythe and what's his name? The guy on the right tackle, Jake Curran, is that him? That they're the answers, or are they just waiting for the draft because they know they're going to get a tackle? Like, what's your read of what they're doing?
I don't think that they are purposely tanking. I just don't think it's in Pete Carroll's DNA to do that. I don't think that's how it works. I do, however, think that sometimes they buy into their own bullshit where they believe that they know Stone Forsythe could be the guy. They know. And, that comes back to bite them. They've done that a few times where they've stuck with someone forever and we all knew that they should have gotten rid of them. So there could be a little bit of that. I truly don't know if they were worried about the line until they saw who was standing behind it. I think that some of that was put off a little bit for them to be like, well, if we win this lottery, we do this, or if it is Matt Ryan, we could get this and blah, blah, blah. And so I think that is the domino that needs to fall. And maybe after this week where really Mariota went, is gone. They have Who do they have left? Baker and Jimmy G, please. So I think now they're like, okay, so we're going to roll with this rookie, or we might go get, Fitzpatrick, which I would love. God, I would love that so much. It would be hilariously funny. But, someone that they're not really thinking is going to be their starter necessarily before they address the line. Then at that point, is that a smart idea? No. But in the draft, there are some fantastic linemen. So they could just be sitting on that. I really think if they didn't go after Baker, because they could have had Baker by now if they wanted him, and they don't. I think from what I've been hearing through the Cleveland grapevine is that there are teams out there who are like, well, yeah, but you have to eat half his contract. We will take him, but you have to do this. They're not going to do that. They'll let him sit there and then force him to play when Watson gets suspended. I don't know what they're going to do there. So I think that if they wanted Baker, they would have got him. I don't think he's going to end up there, but I think that's kind of what they were waiting to see what they're going to do with quarterback, or if they were holding that out before they addressed the line.
I think where we may all agree is Baker Mayfield would be a really bad idea.
Oh yeah. He's not worth the money at this point.
Like he's just,
I do feel bad for the guy though. I'm not going to lie. Like I feel bad. I really thought he was a serviceable enough quarterback, and they just threw him out like he was trash. I feel terrible for Baker Mayfield.
You're 100% correct, Dayna. Let's not forget that dude put his body on the line for the team this year, playing with like a torn whatever shoulder through more than half the season, struggled through it, and then gets disrespected by the shit show that occurred later on.
Well, there's also, I know folks have, Colin Kaepernick seems to be coming up continually, even though Pete's kind of seems pretty good signs the Seahawks aren't interested. He's now like, I'm going to work out closer to you. He's the University of Washington working out, I think, today or recently. Let's say that the Seahawks change their mind and decide they are interested. How do you guys feel about Colin Kaepernick?
What do you have to lose with working?
Well, if he plays good, I mean, that would be the thing you'd have to lose.
But if you bring him in and, he plays well, then he's going to be super cheap for at least 1 year, right? Like what's the downside to bringing in Kaepernick? I've yet to hear one.
I think the only downside would be is if you're hoping the team loses a lot of games this year to get a higher draft pick, then that would be the only downside. I'm not in the tank mindset, so.
Well, I don't think Kaepernick is so good that he's going to dramatically change.
Maybe a couple games is all.
Yeah. Like I don't think he brings this from a 4-win team to a 10-win team type of thing.
I think he's a 4-win difference than Drew Lock, even after all this time.
Wouldn't that be great? I'm sorry, but and I can understand, people wanting him for a million different reasons. They all, everyone, at least that I've talked to, thinks he does deserve that second chance in the next chance in the NFL. He does look like he's fantastically in shape. He looks like he can still throw. He looks like a football player, and it is not his fault he hasn't played in 5 years. It's the league's fault that he hasn't played in 5 years. So I think that there is a huge upside to bringing in Kaepernick outside of just football. You were the team that bucked the shield and you brought him back in. The second thing too, is that how funny would it be after cursing his name for all those years that we had to then turn around and cheer for him because he's playing for Seattle? That to me would be hilarious and be really fun to watch. But at the same time, if he doesn't work out, if he's not in shape, if he can't play, then cut him in camp and you're done. But at least you gave him a shot. You guys know how I feel about this. I would love to see Colin Kaepernick in camp.
I'm just going to add one small thing here. I'm seeing comments that I quote, the downside is it will be a media circus. Do you know which team we root for? When are we not a media circus?
And who cares? Bring it on.
Who fucking cares?
That's the only way there's going to be any media covering the team this year anyway. But I'm going to be all over the place because there's just a lot of things bouncing through my head about the Seahawks right now. So DK Metcalf, let's talk about this for a second. So Tyreek Hill, bombshell, traded from the Chiefs today to the Dolphins. And I may not get this compensation right, but a first round, a second round, and a fourth round this year, and a fifth and sixth next year, something like that. Does that sound right?
I think so.
So first, second, fourth, fifth, and sixth. If someone offered you that for DK Metcalf right now, would you take it? Neither one of you would take it. Why?
I hang up. He's a blue chip talent at a premium skill position. He is the player you hope to draft with a first round pick, even a high first round pick. The state of Seattle currently, we are in rebuild mode, whether we like it or not. I don't care what anybody says, we're rebuilding. If we are searching for our quarterback of the future, comboing him with DK Metcalf, what else do you want? That's like the most ideal scenario ever. You come into the league your first year as a rookie NFL quarterback, and you're throwing the ball to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Like, I just think we talk all about this. We debate and we complain about cap space and everything like that. And it's like, you know what, though? We don't have an expensive quarterback anymore. This team is short on talent. Okay. We have a proven blue chip talent in DK Metcalf. Very few receivers in the NFL history have done what he has done in, his first 3 years. If you don't want to pay DK, who do you want to pay? I want to know. Like, do you want to pay that receiver from Arizona that just signed with the Jags for $19 million a year? Do you want to pay Christian Kirk $17, $18, $19 million a year and not DK 6, 7, 8 more? Like, pay blue chip talent. We don't have an expensive quarterback. This conversation's batshit insane to me. I just can't handle it. I'm sorry.
Dayna?
No, I wouldn't trade it. Whitney, she's a great follow on Twitter. She and I chat every once in a while, and she put it the best. She said DK Metcalf is who you hope to get with your draft picks. So why send him away for the possibility of finding another one of him? It's illogical. It's not like he's older. You know what I mean? It's not like he's hitting 30 and coming to the end and maybe slowing down. He is at his prime, and his prime is when you want to pay them. You don't want to hope you find someone else for cheaper. That makes no sense to me. I think they hit the jackpot with DK and they know it. And as much as I now no longer believe a dang word that comes out of Pete Carroll's mouth, even though I absolutely love and adore him. Well, I mean, he lied to us 3 times in a row. I mean, what are you going to do?
There's a lot. It wasn't just him.
They all. I don't believe any of it anymore. But I will say this, that when he said, or maybe it was yesterday, when he said, we are going to do everything in our power to sign DK, I actually believed that, because they know that there's no point in completely gutting the team when you are going to have the amount of money that Seattle has next year. Like, that's just going to be crazy. So you might as well keep those players. And like Evan said, they're the perfect safety net for a new quarterback. You know what I mean? For maybe for a rookie coming in, or, a cheap quarterback that they can help them develop. Why wouldn't you?
So I'll be the lone dissent here. I would make that deal. And I talked about trading DK, I think, before anybody. I was talking about by week 4 or 5 in my morning after column, and just getting into the concept of, all right, if you are going to move on from Russell Wilson, and you're going to get at least a few first round picks, if you could get a couple first round picks for DK, and now you're talking about 4 or 5 first round picks, would you be better off? And I think the Tyreek Hill trade today wasn't quite 2 firsts, but it was a first and second and a lot more. I don't know if DK would get the same haul as Tyreek Hill. Like, I don't know.
He better get more.
I don't know.
He better.
I don't know. I think so, or at least equivalent, but
he's 25 years old, Brian.
I know, but Tyreek Hill has done things consistently, and DK that he has not yet done. So
yes, but we have not seen him with a quarterback like
I agree. So none of this has to do with my confidence about DK. There's some people that are off the DK wagon after last year and didn't like the way he behaved or played or whatever. I think DK is awesome. If there was a draft, absolutely, that's the guy you hope you get. I think he's one of the top receivers that would be drafted. So all that has nothing to do with that. But you asked, Dayna, I think you made a fair point, and I've made the same point. You don't trade a blue chip player on the hope of getting a blue chip player. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's hard to find those guys. And that remains true. But there is, for me, I don't value the wide receiver position the way I know a lot of analytics folks do. if I could have it, and I'm not saying you're guaranteed, but if I could have a blue chip left tackle, a blue chip edge rusher, a blue chip, safety or corner, I would rather that than a blue chip receiver. And so I think shifting your blue chips, if you're able to do that, and you're basically, you're pushing your cards in on the blackjack table and getting a new hand. And it might be better. And you're sitting at like 17 or 18. So you're hoping somehow you're going to get 21, right? So it's probably pretty low odds, but you get 5 picks back. Do I think the Seahawks in the state they're in would do better off having 5 fresh young players rather than starting the clock on a $25 to $30 million receiver with nobody to throw to him and not clear when you're going to have someone to throw to him?
So you have complete confidence in Pete Carroll and John Schneider making those picks?
I think that's just kind of
He picked DK.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a shit like Twitter thing.
Is it really though? Is it?
They've been solid drafting the last few years. I don't think they're great, but they're like at least middle of the pack. And they haven't had the first round picks. If anything, like the ones that they've made have been okay of late. I just think that they keep undervaluing having a first round pick and they keep trading them away. So
do you think that's a shift though? Do you guys get that feeling? I think, for years they're like, our team's so good, we don't need a first round pick. Oh, we're only picking in the 20s anyway. What does it matter? Blah, blah. And they got a little arrogant with that.
Yeah.
And I think
agree.
Now that, and I still am okay with the Jamal Adams trade. Don't twist this on me. I still am okay with that trade. But I will say this, that I think that they realize now that Pete is only here for maybe 2 more years. And they have to have, and like I've said a million times, I've said it on Twitter, I think the new head coach is already in the building. And so I think that they realize they need to set up the next head coach. And I think gathering those picks. So will they trade? Do I think that there's no way in hell they won't trade DK? No, I think that there's a chance they might if they got the right number. Do I think that's a good idea? No, but I can see them kind of starting to value those higher picks again, having realized that they've lost out on quite a bit over the last few years without them.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets lost out on Tyreek Hill. If they came back to you and you had now 9 and 10, the Adams pick back, your pick back, and you had their first round pick next year, which is going to be high because they're not going to be that much better. Mm-hmm. You could end up with your left tackle and edge rusher or corner this year. Like, very solid players. And then next year you could be in position to get your quarterback, like better than any
no
other.
one to throw to.
I don't know. I just think there's always people to throw to. Like,
well, good wide receivers are more common in the draft. I will say that, than some of these other positions.
I don't know. Like if the Jets were to give you 2 for the first this year and first next year, I think you got to take that deal. I think that puts you in a much better position to potentially get where you want to go. I get why people don't want to do it. And I would be sad to see DK go, but I don't know. I mean, Evan, what's your guess right now of how much he's going to get paid?
I think he probably ends up close to 30 million, like 28, 29 a year. Yeah, like 25. Seattle staples 4-year deals for their first extensions on cornerstone pieces. So 4 years, 112 million, something like that.
Here's the thing though, and we talked about this with the Deshaun contract, the Watson contract, it made a huge shift in the NFL. And you can see it now in these other players that have signed after him. It's a huge shift in they want guaranteed money. And I think that that's going to start having a heavier hand than some of these bigger number contracts. And so I could see where DK would take maybe 25 if there was more guaranteed. And so that's going to have to be a new spin. That's going to be a new way that front offices are going to have to deal with their money. Now, you could pull the crap that the Browns did and give a $46 million signing bonus and a $1 million contract. Don't get me started. It'll be an hour-long lecture. But I don't think you'll see quite that much of a shift, but I do think we're going to start to see a shift where the front offices are going to have to start saying, we will guarantee more, but you're going to have to take a couple million less a year or something along those lines.
So I'm trying to read, I meant to ask this directly. You guys probably kind of answered this, but Evan, do you want the Seahawks to tank this year?
I want them to lose as many games as possible this year.
That's tanking. Okay, Dayna, do you want the Seahawks to tank this year?
I personally,
Yes.
no, I don't really want them to tank, and I don't think that they will, but I still don't think they're going to win a lot of games. I think that there is a difference there.
Yeah, I don't want them to tank. I'm in this weird spot where, first of all, I just don't really believe in intentionally trying to lose. I think that can be really poisonous and more
Destroys
contagious
locker
than people
rooms.
realize.
Yeah.
But like, I also don't want them to try very hard to fill their quarterback position this year. Like, I didn't want them trading for Deshaun Watson. I didn't want, for multiple reasons, but I did want Matt Ryan a little bit, but like, he was a short-term guy. Like, he wasn't going to be long-term. I don't like the Baker Mayfield thing because he's the exact wrong type of guy. He's just good enough that you probably stick with him longer than you should, but he'll never be good enough to win a championship. Those are the worst kind of quarterbacks to have, and he's expensive. So yeah, I'd like to see some young players play. I'd like to see competition at quarterback. I'd like to see better choices than Geno Smith and Drew Lock. I'd like to Jacob Eason. I'm fine with being part of the competition. Who knows what he'll probably be nothing, but fine. I'd rather there be two other guys that have some more unknown to them and some more upside. But yeah, I'm kind of expecting the Seahawks to be like a 5 to 7 win team this year, like maybe 4 to 7.
Can I say one thing? I think that our listeners probably need to know this. I said this in the chat before Deshaun Watson signed anywhere. And I said, this is the first thing that every single one of us has ever agreed on. And it was that we didn't want Deshaun Watson. And they were for different reasons. I had my reasons. Other people, it was money. It was this, it was that. But I said, I think this is the first time ever we've all agreed on the same thing. But the other thing that we talk about a lot, and I think that this holds a lot of weight with a lot of fans, is you want something that's going to be fun. Even if you're only winning 5 games, you want something that's fun and entertaining, and that is, they're going to suck, but by God, they're out there trying, you know what I mean? Like,
that's why Gardner Minshew is perfect.
Yes, I know. They're not giving him up, right? They're just not gonna
Damn it. It would be so fun.
I know.
It would be so fun.
I know.
Like,
so I think, and I agree with that. And are you going to get that from Drew Lock and Geno Smith? No, you're not. So it's like, I think all of us, it's like, even if it's some random no-name dude, from the CFL, who cares? At least it'll be fun.
So again, I'm going all over the place. Seahawks signed Justin Coleman today, 1-year deal. And folks remember him from a couple of years ago. He's a guy that the Seahawks got in a trade for like a low round pick. Turned out to be like one of the best nickel corners in the game. Left, played in Detroit. I think he played in, what did he play last year?
The Jets, I think. Didn't he play for the Jets
maybe? I don't know. But he signed back on a 1-year deal. And so now you've signed Artie Burns, you signed Sidney Jones, and you signed Justin Coleman. Those could be your starting 3 corners. In fact, I'd expect those to be your starting 3 corners. And that brings up questions. You've got Trey Brown, who's returning from injury. You've got Marquise Blair, and you've got Ugo Amadi. What do they do with Marquise Blair? Where does he, like, he's still a guy that they've been super high on and has a lot of upside. He was a 2nd round pick. I know Evan's been burnt on this a lot, but is he just competing for nickel and then nothing? Or like, what's his chance to get on the field at this point?
I have no take outside of I completely forgot he existed.
I think the Seahawks might have as well.
Like, I literally wiped him from my memory.
He's a talented player. He's a talented player. He has not been a good player yet, but he's been a playmaker for the most part, even when he hasn't been playing well.
Evan, I don't think you can say he's not talented until we see him in the new defense. How would they use him in this new defense?
Exactly.
I think that we need to do that. Is he my favorite player? No. Do you remember how excited we were? Not last season, the season before. And then he got injured in like the second game. We're like, crap, he's going to come back next year and be awesome. And then he sucked. So I'm excited to see, with the changes that they're obviously making, maybe how they use him there.
Do we afford the same grace to LJ Collier?
No,
I think we have to.
No.
Okay. No.
no. You talking about a guy who
He's a great
was
backup.
you know how they say a plus athlete? He was a minus athlete, like from the get-go. And he's proven that he's not explosive, he's not strong, he's not fast. Like, he's just not good. And it's physical limitations as well. So I don't think any different scheme is going to make him faster, stronger, or, really
No.
better.
Yeah.
Marquise Blair is a physically talented kid. Like, he is talented. He is fast. He is strong. He does
But a lot of athletes are that way, right?
not LJ Collier. I mean, Poona Ford's faster, I would bet.
Let me rephrase it. I would not be surprised if Marquise Blair didn't make the roster this year.
I would be.
You would be surprised?
I would be surprised. I think Ugo Amadi is in trouble, and I think he should be. I mean, Ugo's he's one of those weird guys who he seems to make a lot of plays. Like, you're like, all right, like, nicely done. But then he's just not that good of a player. Like, he doesn't cover that well. Doesn't make that many plays on the ball. So I don't know what it means for him. And then you've got Trey Brown, who we all thought was actually showing up really, really well last year, but come off a serious injury. I think the news is most clear for him. Like, it just allows him to be a backup to start, get healthy. And if he beats out one of these guys for their role,
yeah,
awesome. But now you're not reliant on it. So I like the way the secondary is setting up, actually. I think Seahawks probably spent
do you really?
I do.
Cornerback specific. Let's talk about cornerbacks specifically.
Yeah.
Who are you excited about? Artie Burns?
I like Burns and Jones and Justin Coleman and Trey Brown. Like, I like all of those guys.
Okay, I like Trey Brown too. But who else do you like? You liked all of them?
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
bro, Artie Burns is not good. You cannot talk me into that.
All right. He has never had a coverage grade under 70. He had a coverage grade of 85 last year, his first year with Desai. A lot of the people that talk crap about Artie Burns are Steelers fans because they don't like how he played in Pittsburgh. But Desai was in Chicago. He saw Burns. He has played in his scheme, and he played the best ball of his career. And you got him for $2 million. I think that's a great sign, man. Like, there's like the absolute worst case scenario is he's not good, and you have to rely on Trey Brown in that spot instead.
This just feels so shaky, man. I'm not saying he's not going to be good. It just, when our starting cornerbacks are like, oh, we hope they might be good, or they could be good, it's just not good. Like, I don't have confidence here.
Yeah,
I'm not saying they're not going to be good. You cannot point to one cornerback on the roster and tell me that's a solid cornerback right now.
I get where you're coming from, and it's probably good because when we've agreed in the past that the Seahawks secondary is really good, they've been awful. I will never forget the Quinton Dunbar trade that we were so excited about, and how that secondary was like one of the worst that they've ever had. But Sidney Jones, to me, has always been a average to above average corner. He's just been injured, and he wasn't last year, and he played like one of the 12 or 13 best corners in the game from when he started. Like,
I'm not saying don't have hope with that group, because I think there is
that's
a lot
fine
to have hope with them. I'm just saying there's nobody we can reliably depend on and confidently say that.
Yeah, I would point back to last year when it was a similar situation and we had even less confidence. And the Seahawks found corner after corner after corner last year. And that was with Ken Norton's defense and the way they were playing, and the secondary and the coverages they're asking to do were awful. And so I don't know. I'm pretty hopeful with Desai and Carl Scott and Clint Hurt that even the guys that we haven't talked about, Michael Jackson had like an awesome last 2 games of the season.
Sure.
A lot of people are like, whatever. I think those, like, the plays he made are plays that a lot of corners don't make. So I am excited to see if he can prove it next year, coming into this season. So
did you guys see that Witherspoon actually finished pretty well with the Steelers last year?
They re-signed him.
They did. He did not. He was moderately decent with them.
Interesting.
And
he
that's
started
because
off really bad for them.
Yeah. And that's what gives me hope on some of our players that haven't played well is new coaching makes a difference sometimes. New scheme makes a difference. So you never know. Fingers crossed.
Did I say Sydney Rice or something? Everyone's saying Sydney Jones in the chat, and I wasn't sure if I.
No, I thought you said
No,
Sydney.
I just keep saying like there's no reliable corner that we can confidently like. I'm excited about Sidney Jones. I like Sidney Jones. I think he has a lot of potential, but I don't know. It's just aggressively confident for somebody to say to me that Sidney Jones is like a reliable, competent starter.
Yeah, I don't have that hesitation at all. I think he's a really good corner. Bobby Wagner.
I don't know if you guys talked when I had to pop off really quick or not, but I cannot tell you how excited I am about Diggs being back. You know, he's my boy.
I know, right?
I was so excited. And then to hear him today, did an interview and he said he didn't want to move his family. He really felt like the Seattle defense was just starting to kind of click. And I was just like, it makes me happy.
I think he's the leader of the team right now.
Oh yeah.
Who else? Like, not even just offense, defense. Like, who else is the leader on that entire roster? I think it's him.
Yeah.
Like, it's his team now almost. And Jamal's a leader in one way, but he's got to be on the field. He's got to produce in order for that. Dwayne Brown, if he re-signed, maybe. But that's going to be really interesting to see like who emerges as leadership voices with Bobby and Russ out of there. Maybe Jordan Brooks takes a more vocal role. I don't know.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say there was a really interesting tweet that a lot of people replied to about who were the top 5 players that the Seahawks had now. And there were a lot of repeats, but I found the interesting is that really it was Ford and Brooks or Taylor and Brooks it went back and forth between those 3 young guys. And that was good for me to see, because that means people were trusting them and liking what they were seeing from them and believing that they could just get better. And so that was encouraging from the fan base for me too.
Yeah. What do you guys think about the Bobby news that just came out this afternoon about him looking at the Rams? Dayna, go ahead.
I want to know where the hell that might. Okay, I've said this on Twitter. The cap is not real. None of it actually exists. I don't know how the Saints can go from 70 million over the cap to having the most cap space now in the league. It's all such a bunch of crap, and I hate it. I hate every single second of it. But I will say this, that the Rams are really the only team in the NFC West that have managed to make impactful changes. They lost Von Miller, but they got Robinson. They lost some players. I know they're still talking with Aaron Donald about his contract, but really, if you look at the rest of the NFC West, there's not been a huge amount of change for the good. You could say losing Russ and Bobby's huge change for Seattle. But I think if they added Bobby there, I think that just puts them right back in the top of the Super Bowl contention again.
How about you, Evan? How do you feel about that possibility?
The number one priority for the 2022 league year is Seattle losing as many games as possible.
So he doesn't
Bobby
care.
Wagner going to an NFC West, competitor will help that cause. So we will make sacrifices. And that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think the world of Bobby. I want whatever he wants. That's fine. It's not a situation where I feel like there's a lot on the line for the Seahawks.
LA's his hometown too. So
right.
It's like,
it is. And
better than Niners, right? Better than
yes. We've gone through that. That really sucked for sure.
I want to do that again.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't have strong feelings about it. I didn't like seeing it. It'll be hard to see if that happens. I'm
still real shocked he didn't end up in Dallas. I don't know what the hell Dallas is doing this year. Like, it's completely baffling. And I know we don't like to talk about other teams on this show, but it's so confusing. I thought for sure that's where Bobby was going to end up, was in Dallas. I had it in my head. That's where he was going. And they just bailed.
The serious take on this is Bobby has been the best linebacker in the NFL for the past decade and has given his complete heart and soul to the Seahawks and literally played his time perfectly here on off the field. I literally don't think I can point to a single thing where he's been, anything but elite and complete class, and he deserves to go wherever he wants to go for any
Agreed.
amount.
Couldn't
And
have said
make
it
all
better.
the money, Bobby. All of
That's
it.
just the reality.
Yep.
Totally agree. And there's not a lot of guys that we could say that about. So, all right, let's close up by just saying, like, what next? Do you guys want, from a free agency perspective, for them to address any other positions before the draft? And I'll tell you, for me, tackle, like, but it's hard because I don't know who you sign. If you sign Dwayne Brown, fine, but I can't say that I'd rather them have Dwayne Brown the way their quarterback and the rest of the team is. Like, maybe it is better for Stone Forsythe to play than Dwayne Brown, but I haven't looked to see if there's any other interesting tackles. I'm pretty sure all of them have signed at this point. So I don't know. Any other, like, what do you want to see them do, Evan, with free agency before the draft? Anything?
I can't really think of any significant players that are unsigned that I've been like, come on, Seattle, make a move for them. I'm looking through the free agent list too, and it's just, actually, you know who I would take? I would 100% take let's see how old he is, 36-year-old Calais Campbell. Bring him back.
That's who I was going to say.
Bring him. Actually, he was never in Seattle, so I guess bring him to Seattle, not back. Yeah. He did dominate us in Seattle. Calais would be nice. And honestly, you know what? While we're at it, bring back Clowney too. Bring back Clowney. I've been on that train for years. Let's bring him back. Jimmy Graham's a free agent. Bring back Jimmy.
Bridge too far.
I'm just kidding.
Bridge too far.
I'm just kidding.
How about you, Dayna?
Yeah, Calais Campbell, I'm all in. I've said this a million times. He's the biggest human I've ever seen in my entire life. I love Calais Campbell. Love it. Looking at the list, there's a few on here that I'm surprised haven't signed. You can tell that they're kind of sitting there waiting. Stephen Gilmore, Tyrann Mathieu, there's a few that haven't. But really, I don't want another wide receiver. Remember, we talked about that for so long. We wanted that veteran wide receiver. I'm over that now. Don't really need that anymore. I wouldn't mind adding maybe one or two other defensive players. I do think they should bring Dwayne Brown back. I think they should just let him finish his career in Seattle and train up, the other guys one more year, as long as he's not too expensive. And I can't imagine that he would be at this point. But I'm all in on Calais Campbell. Bring him on over.
I feel like Tyler Lockett's a weird fit with this team right now.
Why is that?
Because, I just don't think they're going to have anyone to throw to anybody. And it seems weird that you're going to have one of the best wide receiver duos in the league and pretty good tight end room and a great running back room. Welcome back, Rashad Penny. Mm-hmm. And I want to come back to that one in a second, but he's an older receiver at this point. Was he in the late 20s, 30s, something like that? How old is he? I almost feel just bad for him. Like, I'd like Tyler to play on a team that has a chance. And if you could get, I don't know, what would you get for Tyler? Like
29,
a third round pick, a fourth round pick?
Third, probably, maybe a second.
The other thing with Tyler too, is his whole career has been learning how to scramble to get those passes from Russell Wilson when Russell Wilson extends the play. It'll be interesting. I would like to see him with a more pure pocket passer to see how that works. Maybe that would show a different side of him. And so if you get that, because he, much like Doug Baldwin, was constantly running around up there, trying to hook up with Wilson, that's all Lockett has done. And so I want to see him with a pure pocket passer or something more close to that. I know the league's kind of going away from that. But I hope that's in Seattle. Again, I'm ready for completely different in the quarterback position. I don't want a Russell Wilson retread. So I think that both he and DK deserve that chance to see what that looks like.
Can I throw out one name, Brian, at tackle?
Yeah.
Brian beluga, the beluga whale.
Bulaga?
Is it Bulaga?
It is Bulaga. He's always played right tackle. He's been super injured. Is he like even able to walk at this point?
He played well for the Chargers last year.
Did he?
Yeah,
Huh.
tackle.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think for the most part, I'm like about accumulating draft picks right now.
Oh, you know who's a free agent?
Yeah.
Jermaine Ifedi.
Oh God, I saw that today. God, that would be awful. That would be
That's not
really
even
bad.
funny, Evan. Like that's
I'm just throwing out the worst possible names, to be clear.
People were talking about it. I saw it in like the paper or something. But can I tell you guys one quick story before we kind of get close to wrapping up here? So I don't know if you read any of the quotes or listened to Rashad Penny's press conference talking about when he resigned. But he said at least 3 and maybe 4 different times, a big part of the reason he chose to come back is that he and Chris Carson want to be the best running back room. And he's really comfortable with Chris, and Chris is one of his best friends. And like, he really like emphasized that. And I'm like, dude, I think there's a really good chance Carson's going to get cut. Like, can you imagine if he signed to come back and play with Chris Carson and then they cut him? Like,
I think that depends on if they get a baby quarterback. I'm sorry, I call rookies babies, but if the rookie quarterback, if they go and they actually draft the quarterback, they need both of them because one of them will get injured. So they need both of them to kind of take some of that pressure off. Don't you think? Hell, even Drew Lock needs a really good run game. He really does.
I don't think they're going to cut Carson because he's not good. I just don't think he's going to play again, or he's going to be like a severe medical risk.
Right. Do we have any information on his neck? I don't know.
Not really.
No.
I mean, Pete's given his normal, like, he's doing great. But my reading between the lines of Pete is like, Pete's not expecting him to play.
Okay. Well,
That's my reading.
Can I just say, like, now that we don't have an expensive quarterback or a franchise, I'm sorry, we do have a franchise quarterback in Drew Lock, but now that we don't have an expensive quarterback, I'm all in on the Pete Carroll run game train right now. We have nothing else to lose. Like why the fuck not? Let's run 45 times a game. Let's just.
Oh my God. Nathan's head just exploded somewhere.
No, I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding though. Like, if this is who we're going to be, let's own it.
I like that.
I do too.
I agree.
A great run game and a great defense. Let's go back old school Pete Carroll.
How is it possible we've talked for almost an hour, Evan, and you haven't mentioned Quinton Jefferson?
Not even saving it.
So about that tanking.
Because if you're waiting for me to bring him up, man.
Oh my God. He
so
left in free agency a couple of years ago. He immediately played well with the Bills. Brian Nemhauser shat on me every single goddamn day of my fucking life. And Quinton Jefferson, every single game for the Buffalo Bills was an absolute goddamn stud, while the Seattle defensive line struggled. They struggled. And you know what they did? They rectified their sins. They repented, and they brought him back. And guess who is in a Seattle Seahawks uniform? Quinton Jefferson.
You, Jeff. Woohoo!
Baby, we're contenders again. It's done.
Oh my God. That was awesome. And
you avoided Twitter very well that day, Brian. I have to.
That was just so, I was like, oh, sweet, a mediocre interior lineman. I can't wait to watch him play. Like,
can we talk about how Jaron Reed's like career has just like nosedived?
Yeah. Well, it seems like it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. So
good point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've covered a lot of bases. Anything else that I haven't brought up that you guys think we should at least have a word about?
What about that Chargers linebacker addition / edge rusher?
Oh, Wosu?
Yeah. What's your guys' read on that? Like, I got a lot of shit for saying it felt a little expensive. He's not a bad player. Don't think he's a bad player. But what was your guys' read on that take?
I don't think he was expensive, but like, he's a young player who was actually a pretty hot commodity after having a really good second half of the year for the Chargers. And he's a perfect scheme fit with what they're doing. And he's young, like 25 or something. So it's a chance to potentially get the best deal on the market for a rusher. I don't think he's like Von Miller, but I think he might end up being a pretty good signing for them. Dayna?
Yeah, I really don't know much about, even though I covered that division, I really don't know much about him. But from everything that I've read, it's basically what you said. He's a good scheme fit. Like, it makes sense. And I think at some point we need to do a show for people like me who I want to talk about the change in the way that we think they're going to play defense and how those changes are going to be. And we need to let Nathan come on and say the words bear front just to get it out of his system. But I think that it's, I think that from what I've read, most people seemed pleased with it, like people in the know that would know. And so it'll be fun to watch. I'm ready. I'm all ready for new. I'm so all in on new and different.
You're 100% correct, actually, Dayna. I want to piggyback off that. Like, although I am
Wait, clip it. He said I was right.
I am catastrophically broken that the Seahawks traded Russell Wilson. I think it was a horrible decision, and I'll forever feel that way. But it is nice to have something new to talk about, because this has been the state of the team for this is what I've been bitching about, is like, for the past 7 years with a franchise quarterback, they've been kind of mediocre. Like, they haven't won playoff games. They've been successful in the regular season, obviously, but it just felt stagnant. And I prefer the unknown over stagnant mediocrity. So
I agree with that. And you're comment about the Russell thing. You and I haven't had a really chance to talk about it, and we have to go into it in depth here, but you're not alone in that feeling. You are in the minority from what I've gathered from talking to folks. And I've been a Seahawks fan for a long time. I'm like super old. And I've had favorite players, dating back to like the Kurt Warners and the Brian Blades and Rufus Porters and like all these different people, Amon Green. Like, there's never been, Matt Hasselbeck was probably my favorite Seahawk ever to cheer for. Doug Baldwin's right up there. And when they left, like, I was bummed, but I wasn't crushed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious, like, I've never had a player that meant so much to me that I wasn't then just drawn back to the team. So I'm curious, like, how does that make sense, Evan? Like, sounds like it's different for you. I guess I'm trying to understand that a little bit better.
Yeah, no, it was, I think it really stems to those 2012 through 2015 years. Like, it was the first championship I experienced as a sports fan. And to me, that was literally one of the happiest moments of my life, was that Super Bowl run. And I don't think it happens without Russell Wilson. And he was responsible for some of the greatest sports moments, like I said, I've experienced in my life. Like, I'm obviously significantly younger than you. And now if I had gotten to witness like the Sonics in the 90s and stuff like that, that might, my tune might be a little bit different. But yeah, he's responsible for creating some of the greatest sports moments of my life.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I get that. I think that is a lot of the younger fans. They don't know Seattle without Russell Wilson, or just a little bit of it, as they were building that up. And so that I could see that being a much bigger hit, much like the Patriots fan when Brady left. I mean, those people were devastated because that's all they knew for 20 years. Right. And so I get that a little bit. And I think one of the luxuries that older fans such as myself and Brian have is we've seen change, and we've seen kind of the ebb and flow of teams and how it can be fun to be bad sometimes and take some of that expectation off. So it's a little easier for us to swallow, for some people to swallow than others. Do I think it was a good decision to get rid of Russell? I didn't, until they said he was not going to sign another contract. Then I'm like, great, get him out. They should have done it last year and sent him to Chicago. And so, but I don't think they really knew that last year, because you're in it long enough and you just see that, the one player is not always the team, but you have to have lived long enough to actually see that. And a lot of current fans of the Seahawks haven't. That's all they knew. So.
Yeah, well, it's certainly new, and there's going to be different conversations, which I think we're all enjoying, just talking about something different, and an ending that's less predictable than we've had for a little bit of time. So thanks everybody. Go ahead
real quick. Russell Wilson is up there in terms of my favorite, most iconic Seattle sports athletes, right next to Luke Rendauer.
I do think there's something to the fact that Russ was really dismissed nationally and by the league for a long time. So I think a lot of Seahawks fans kind of circled the wagon and was like vehemently defending him. And that's, used a lot of the analytics to make points and whatever. And so then he proved himself and became the superstar that they knew. And so I think people feel just personally invested to that, that as well. And not having that here, it's almost like they've lost their identity of, how to do this Seahawks thing. So
we've got to call his PR person, though. For God's sake, he's got to drop "Let's Ride." He has to. It's disastrous. It's disgusting. And even Broncos fans don't like it. So we got to go. It's got to go. Just go Broncos and move on, Russ. Trust me.
I mean, and none of the stuff he's done PR wise, other than going to Children's Hospital, has ever been
great.
It's all been cringy.
Go Hawks made sense.
It did. It was fair.
Love you, Russ. Let it go. Just saying.
All right. So if you haven't already, please give the show a like and subscribe. We are limiting chat to just people that are subscribers to keep the unruly masses out. And go to hawkblogger.com. Go to hawkblogger.com to see the blog, to read, share with others, but also go to patreon.com/hawkblogger. Sign up, get immediate access to the Slack channel where the conversation continues, even when we are not here. And there's still room and opportunity to get into the Ring of Honor over at patreon.com/hawkblogger, which will get you access to a once-a-year meal we do with the crew. And I've been slacking. We're going to try to do it around the draft if we can rally people to do that. It's going to be fun. And so join up now and would love to see you there. Otherwise, we will continue bringing you Real Hawk Talk coverage as the offseason continues. The draft marches closer. And I hope everybody has a wonderful, safe, and maybe drier and warmer next few weeks. So take care. Go Seahawks.